Most men live their entire lives as a feather in the wind. They have very little control or say over what they do and what direction they go in. And in my opinion, it is one of the most painful places to be in. Having very little self-autonomy can honestly make or break a man. Because let's be honest, why do any of us do what we do? No matter what way you put it, it all comes back down to we want freedom above all else. If I was to ask really any prisoner with over a 5-year sentence if they could trade their entire net worth in for being out of jail right now, most of them would take it within a heartbeat. But the truth be told, I've spent most of my life feeling like a passenger to my own existence, a feather in the wind. I actually coined the term flowing down the river of life because that's how I used to describe how I felt before I really came to terms with fully understanding why it was happening. Things were just happening to me and I seemingly had very little to no control over what happened. And this started as early as school. Wake up, go to school, learn about shit that you do not give a fuck about, and you're slowly but surely conditioned into being a very good boy, a very agreeable person, doesn't make too much noise, does as they're told. And even for subjects which you do innately enjoy, for example, like you might like art. You take your art class and you enjoy about 10% of it where you're actually doing art, and then the other 90% is just bullshit. You're learning about the philosophy of art and let's annotate this artistic piece together. What does it mean that the curtains are blue or whatever the fuck, right? Any subject that you might have innate interest in, the fucking fun is just sucked out of it. And it once again just becomes a monotonous chore for you to just show up to as an empty vessel. And for most, this school period sets up the next stage of indoctrination. University. Get into debt, become trapped running on a hamster wheel, and cope by going out 3 times a week doing hard drugs. And by the end of it, you'll get a certificate which is supposed to indicate to the market how valuable you are, which is complete and utter horseshit. But by the time most people who are flowing down the river of life realize this, it's too late. They're already running on the hamster wheel of all of the external pressure. They've got a debt, they've got their parents expecting them to do X and Y. And on top of that, they've also accrued a brand new, very expensive drug and drinking habit. And their friends that they've made are so important to them and they want to feel included in the tribe. So they have to keep up with that as well. So they go into the workforce and they spend the majority of their lives teetering on the edge of constant financial drowning. And then they use their vices to cope with it. But for me, I was actually lucky because I had a total mental breakdown halfway through college. That's right, guys, I was lucky. And after my mental breakdown, I dropped out of college and I sat and essentially just decayed in my room for 3 years. Because for my entire life, I had people telling me how I should live, what I should do. And during this period, I didn't have anyone telling me anything. So I had genuinely no idea how to live for myself. So I doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on my vice, which was video games at the time. And then if I had anything to do outside of that, I would literally just go AFK in real life. I would become a passenger. Because of my crippling mental illnesses, for example, I had to go to doctor's appointments, counseling sessions, psychiatrists, each and every time. It would be like almost a task for me. And I would go on my NPC route A to B, completely unconscious the entire time, get through the thing with the least amount of friction possible, usually by just nodding my head and going, yeah, give me the pills, yeah, I'll do another counseling session, yeah. Get back home, escapism, straight into my video games. And that was my life. I was literally a vessel. I was there physically, but mentally, I was on fucking Mars. Things were just happening. I had no control over anything. It was a miserable time. And to make things worse, my League of Legends girlfriend broke up with me. She started duoing with another Draven main. Absolute major red pill there. But this was when I reached my absolute lowest point in the trenches. This was a very dangerous time for me. Most nights I spent in total mental anguish, constantly torturing myself in my brain, which was why most of the time I tried my very best to exhaust myself to the point where I would pretty much just go straight to sleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. Because any time where I was awake without stimulation, such as my video games or like a YouTube video, I would immediately just start falling into this black hole of despair. And one night I was in my black hole of despair and it was getting worse and worse and worse. It was getting quite loud in my head. And I went downstairs and I wanted to kill myself. I wanted it to end. And I grabbed a very sharp kitchen knife And I sat on my sofa and I stared at the knife for what seemed like forever. It was probably more like 10 to 15 minutes. And I really weighed up the pros and cons of me ending it all right there. That was very rough. I didn't end up doing it. I didn't end up doing anything with that knife. I actually called my mom, who was asleep upstairs. I called her on her phone, crying, and I asked her to come downstairs, and she hugged me and took the knife away. And that was one of the few times where I very deeply thought about my own suicide and just getting it over with, you know. But it was at this lowest point where my friend in Discord, Yanis, he was right alongside me the whole time, battling in the trenches, but his battle was going significantly better than mine. Okay, you know, he maybe didn't have it all dialed in, but he didn't want to fucking kill himself, so he was going to the gym. That was going really well for him, and he said to me, like, Sam, why don't you just start going to the gym? And the thing is, the gym had always resonated with me. I'd always wanted to have a nice aesthetic physique. The problem is, when I had that desire, I was as young as 13, and I wasn't old enough to go to my local gym. By the time I was old enough to go to my local gym, I was completely mired in social anxiety, so I never got the chance. And quite frankly, because I was a passenger to my own life and I didn't know how to do things for myself, going to the gym felt insanely difficult. Like, it felt like a mountainous task. But at my lowest, my friend suggested to me, Sam, just start going to the gym. My friend had a cool physique and I wanted a body like that too. The problem was I was so completely destroyed by my own anxiety that I couldn't actually go to the gym without having panic attacks. So what I did was I bought some adjustable dumbbells from Amazon and also a pull-up bar, and I started just doing these like very scuffed home workouts. And quite frankly, this was the first bit of self-autonomy that I ever felt in my entire life. This was the first time I was doing something for myself, and I went completely all in on it. I used all of my autistic video game energy, my competitiveness, and I started to just pour it all into the gym. Honest to God, during this very dark period of my life, sometimes I spent upwards of 6 hours a day in the gym. And that is certainly not optimal. Before you comment like, oh Sam, 6 hours, that's crazy. It's not optimal. The reason why I did that was because being in the gym was the only time where I felt any sense of control over my own life, my own destiny, my own fate. And any time which I wasn't in the gym was just once again spent at home thinking about how horribly inadequate I am and how little control I have over anything. I also started obsessing over my diet. I started obsessing over bodybuilding in general. I was eating 4,000 calories a day to try and put on weight. My metabolism is pretty insane. And sometimes this meant staying up until 3 a.m, literally just force feeding myself peanut butter and fucking shotting olive oil. But while I was in the gym and while I was stuffing my face with food, I wasn't a passenger. For the first time in my life, I was doing something for myself with my own self-autonomy, my own decision to take action. And not only that, I was doing something which was objectively a positive thing. I was building my body. And that's why starting your self-development with the gym is so fucking powerful. I know a lot of you boys watching this, you're already in a gym. Fucking fantastic. But I know for a fact that there's still a few of you who aren't in the gym. And all I can say is, bro, honestly, any limiting beliefs that you have in your head, just fucking chuck them in the bin and just start getting into the gym. It doesn't mean you're gonna become a musclehead fucking Chad retard, okay? You can still be an intellectual if that's your archetype. I believe that's more my archetype. That's my strength. But you can also still look after your body. The intellectual Chad. That's what you want to be. That might be just one of the few limiting beliefs that you have about going to the gym. Please, for the love of God, just get in the gym. And as I continued my journey of self-development, it's no secret that one of my biggest mentors has been Hamza. Me and Hamza worked alongside each other on his YouTube channel and took his channel from 500 subscribers to over 2 million subscribers. I worked as his editor and I developed the Jeffrey and Adonis format. But on top of that, we also just became best friends, and Hamza kind of mentored me through my self-development while I kind of helped him with his YouTube channel and the direction of it and the growth and so on and so forth. And I grew so much alongside Hamza, and I'm so grateful for that time I spent alongside him, because frankly, with the type of person I am, I probably wouldn't have taken most of the risks that I have taken, which has got me to the point that I'm at now. I kind of needed him to fucking hold my hand during this period of my life. life. The problem with this though is that I did actually lose a sense of self-autonomy once again. Me and Hamza booked in a trip to Thailand, okay? And just for some context, this was my very first time leaving my country. It was my very first time I would spend time away from my parents. I had only just recently healed from my crippling anxiety and depression. I could not even leave the house without having panic attacks. So this was an absolutely enormous leap for me, completely skyrocketing me out of my comfort zone. And the leap was so massive that I feel like I did again fall into the behavior pattern of just feeling like a passenger. For example, when I was in Thailand, I was so insanely uncomfortable and out of my element that I did feel reliant on Hamza. So whatever Hamza was doing, I would just go along with that, because doing shit on my own terms was just scary at this point. Maybe I wanted to go to the gym and Hamza wanted to go and cold approach women. I didn't have the power at that point to literally just say to Hamza, I don't want to do cold approaching with women. I'm already uncomfortable enough as it is, and this makes me even more uncomfortable. I would rather just go to the gym. So the issue was I fell back into the behavior pattern of sort of thinking like, what are we doing today, Hamza? Rather than, what are we doing today, Sam? Another example is like, we climbed up this waterfall through the tourist pathway through the jungle, okay? And that was hard enough and it was good fun. But then the guys I was with, Hamza included, they decided they wanted to just, you know, free climb down the front of the waterfall. It was fairly doable, but to me, it was like very dangerous. I'm not the most physical person, and it made me insanely uncomfortable. Like, I was scared to death, because quite frankly, the best case scenario is that it would really fucking hurt. Somewhere in between best case and worst case, I would break my fucking legs in the middle of the Thai jungle. And the worst case scenario is I'm just straight up fucking dead. I did not want to climb down this waterfall, but because I was just a passenger, I didn't have a strong enough mental frame to just say to these guys, you guys have fun, I don't want to do this shit, it's too dangerous for me, it makes me too uncomfortable. I'm gonna go climb down the waterfall alone through the tourist pathway, which is far safer. I didn't have that ability, so I ended up climbing down this waterfall when I didn't fucking want to. And I got to the bottom, and while everyone else was celebrating about how awesome that was, I just felt fucking nothing, honestly. I felt disdain for the fact that I had just done that. I didn't feel any sense of achievement. And that's another issue with not having any self-autonomy. If you're not making the decision to do the things, even if you're doing the right things, you don't feel a sense of reward. So even though I grew so much during that time in Thailand with Hamza, I didn't feel like I deserved it. I didn't feel rewarded. I didn't feel that sense of growth. And you can argue that this period of time for me was necessary, because once again, I am the type of person who doesn't usually take risks unless someone really pushes me to do it. And I don't regret this period of my life at all, because it did teach me the importance of self-autonomy and making decisions for yourself. But it did also force me to do shit which I just wouldn't have usually done. Maybe it doesn't align with my values and my character. For example, the waterfall. I like taking calculated risks for good rewards, okay? And climbing down that waterfall, I like adventure, but it's just simply not worth risking my fucking life for, okay? That's just me, that's my character. Some people like to live life more on the edge. They like to do this crazy shit. I don't. Also, just cold approaching women. To be quite honest with you, I don't care too much about speaking to random women in the street, especially on a party island in Thailand. I don't think they're going to have much to offer me. Maybe that's a limiting belief. Maybe you can find your wife on this island, but 99.9% of the conversations I did have were shallow and boring. Yet, I continued to do these cold approaches because I did not have any self-autonomy. This highlights how important the freedom of choice is, because despite having mentorship from Hamza and being pushed out of my comfort zone and how great that could seem, quite frankly, I was at my happiest when I was on my own routine, which I put together in Thailand. I was doing things on my terms, in my time, rather than waking up and saying something like, Hamza, what are we doing today? And this is also why I'm quite iffy on making videos like the perfect morning routine, and also just offering like direct advice for optimizing someone's routine. For example, if one of my academy students asks me, because I understand that different shit works for different people and there is no no one-size-fits-all solution, and I'm happy to make suggestions, but the best routine you can have is the one that you choose to abide by. It's very fucking important that you choose to do what you want to do, and that's why most of you probably want to earn money online. You don't want to have a boss, for example, who tells you what to do and when to do it. That's the draw to making money online, and that's why a lot of you guys join my academy to learn video editing, because you can start to work on your own terms. There is nothing sustainable about being a passenger to someone else's direction and someone else's ideas, and school will lead you into the pathway of indoctrination from a very young age. And if you're not careful, strong personalities can also lead you in a pathway which doesn't necessarily align with you and your values. The reason we do what we do is for freedom. We want financial freedom. We want time freedom. We want location freedom. Quite frankly, by the time I was done with school, I was insanely susceptible to being programmed because I was essentially an NPC at that point, an empty vessel. I was a good boy. I did what I was told. I was agreeable. I was lucky to have that mental breakdown because it gave me those 3 years to deprogram myself from all of the bullshit I'd been taught. It allowed me to find something which I genuinely aligned with, which was video editing. I would edit my own silly gaming videos just for the sake of making my friends laugh. And it is those skills which I used which literally gave me my lifestyle that I have now. Developing the Jeffrey and Adonis format, working with multiple multi-millionaire clients, getting involved in their networks, traveling the world with them, all while earning money doing what I love. So let's do an exercise together right now. Close your eyes. Feel the external pressures that you might be feeling right now. Not the stuff which is like, you know, duty, because you should have a duty to be a strong provider male, a high value man, let's say. But I mean the other shit. Do you really want to go to university? Or is it more like that your family is pressuring you and it was just like the AFK decision to make because that's what you're supposed to do? Do you really need all of those friends because you want to feel popular? Or would it be better to cut people off who don't align with you and just have 1 or 2 solid good friends who have a good influence on you? When was the last time you made a decision for yourself rather than someone else? Am I comfortable in saying no? You can open your eyes. Because when I was at the top of that waterfall, I wish I said no. I don't want to do that. I value my life. It makes me insanely uncomfortable. I like taking calculated risks. I don't want to do this. Because when you're able to behave more like that is when you actually start to get respect from other people, but more importantly, yourself. I was smoking cigarettes with a few friends of mine, and I don't usually smoke cigarettes, but I don't know why I was just in a smoking cigarette era. And we had this one friend who was like stood sort of away from us while we were smoking, and one of my friends looks to him and goes, "Yo bro, do you want a cigarette?" And he goes, "Oh no thanks." And this is a guy who takes his fitness and his cardio and his spirituality really seriously, and I just remember like I consciously gained so much more respect for him for just living his life on his terms and not just being a passenger, because the passenger NPC thing to do would be, yes, I want to feel included, it would be pleasurable for me to smoke that cigarette, so I'm going to do it. I gained respect for him for his ability to just say no. And this bleeds into all areas of life. For example, I used to feel really uncomfortable setting up the vibe which I wanted. So I'd go into a restaurant and maybe I wouldn't like the seating arrangement, but I would just sit down anyway to not cause much of a fuss. But it's just silly things like moving chairs around or sitting at a different table, which will just fucking boost your self-esteem and the respect that you have for yourself and the respect that you get from others. I'm giving you permission now, you watching this video. You are, from this point forward, allowed to live your life on your terms. You are allowed to make decisions which align with you, what you want. Because the sooner you do this, the more fulfilled, the more happy, the more purposeful you can become. Here is the Discord message of the day. If you're not already in the Discord, join right now, find some friends who are on self-development just like you. And if you want to learn how to make money online from the comfort of your bedroom or traveling the world with your laptop, I teach over 500 students how to do exactly that. And as you can see on the screen here, we are getting excellent results inside of my academy. You could be next. Take care, boys.